Now we will be looking at two very important types of business organizations in the private sector. First, we have private limited companies. Private limited companies are incorporated businesses. The owners have limited liabilities because the business is a separate legal entity. As discussed earlier, as the business is a separate legal entity, owners have limited liabilities where they are liable only to the amount of money they invest into the business. Next is a crucial point. The business is owned by shareholders. But why are they called shareholders? The reason is quite simple, because they hold shares of the business. They buy shares and become the owners of the business. In return, the shareholders are paid dividends. Now that we understand what we mean by private limited companies, let us look at some advantages of it, considering a family-owned business. First of all, there is a big scope of capital because businesses can sell shares of the company. By selling shares, they get more finance and in return provide the shareholders with ownership. Here, the family-owned business can sell shares to its members and be financially sound. Along with that, as discussed previously, shareholders have limited liability because the business is a separate entity from the shareholders. Next, we have a very important advantage of private limited companies. Considering the example of a family-owned business, the owners have strong control over their company. They can monitor the sale of shares and ensure that they have full control of the business. After that comes another crucial benefit of being a private limited company. The companies are legally sound. In this form of business, owners have to go through a lot of legal work, which will be talked about shortly. Because of this, the shareholders can benefit from their businesses being legally sound. Apart from these, all in all, this form of business has fewer risks compared to the ones we have discussed so far. However, it's not all benefits. Private limited companies have a number of disadvantages as well, which we will look at next. The first disadvantage would be that before starting the family-owned business, the owners had to go through a lot of legal paperwork. There are mainly two important forms or documents that a business needs to make and send to the Register of Companies. First is the Article of Association. This consists of the rules under which the company will be managed, the rights and duties of all directors, rules concerning the election of directors, and holding of official meetings. This also includes a procedure to be followed for issuing of shares. The second is the Memorandum of Association, which includes the important information about the company and the directors. The official name and the address of the registered office needs to be stated. Moreover, the objectives of the business needs to be stated as well as the number of shares to be bought by each of the directors. As you can imagine, that's a lot of work. Once they have prepared these documents and sent it to the Register of Companies, the certificate of incorporation will be given to the business. Apart from this, the business has a restriction of selling shares. In private limited companies, shares cannot be sold without the agreement of all other shareholders. So for example, if one member in the family-owned business wants to sell to another person, everyone else needs to sign off on that. If everyone does not agree, the sale will not go through. Along with that is the fact that shares cannot be sold to the public. The sale of shares needs to be among family or friends. It cannot be sold to the general public. One last disadvantage would be the fact that the accounts of private limited companies is more open than the previous forms of businesses we discussed. This is because each year the family-owned business would have to send their annual accounts to the Register of Companies and the members of the public to inspect and audit. This makes their account less risky, so the company has to invest in being more compliant with laws. Now that we know all the advantages and disadvantages, let us look at some suitable scenarios for this kind of business. It is most common with family businesses. It can also be seen in partnerships where they turn into a private limited company because the partners want to grow further. And it is seen in businesses with owners who want to raise more capital and reduce risks.